In business, there's a belief that you only really have two options. Either you go big, hustle hard, chase the VC investment, grow the team, grow the office, scale at all costs, or you settle for what people call, with a bit of a sniff, a little lifestyle business. Nice for you, not to be taken too seriously. I'm Anna Lindberg, and I've spent over a decade proving that's a fool's choice. You can build something properly profitable, a real business that earns you good money, and still have it fit around a real life. And I've spent that same decade helping other independent people do exactly that. So this isn't a pep talk about balance. This is the actual architecture, the things I'd sit you down and walk you through if you wanted a business that pays you properly and doesn't run you into the ground. Now, there are three parts of it that I'll walk you through today: how you design the business, how you create demand for it, and how you deliver it without it taking over your life. So let me take them one at a time. Design is where most people skip straight past the foundations and go hunting for tactics. They want the LinkedIn strategy, the funnel, the lead magnet. But if you don't know what you want or what you want your business to look and feel like, you don't create that freedom. You just get busier. So, three things have to be right before any of that. The first is knowing what you're actually building towards. And I mean specifically, not freedom or balance, which are lovely words that tell you nothing on a Tuesday morning when you're deciding whether to take a call or to take on a project. I get clients to turn a vague vision into three kinds of criteria. The first are the practical parameters, the actual numbers. How many hours a week do you want to work? How many weeks a year? And what income do you want to take home? Real figures written down. This is also where you get to be honest about what enough actually looks like in time and in money. Because if you never define enough, you never get to feel like you've reached it. Second, the preferences, your preferences, who you want to work with and how, solo or in groups, in person or online, the work you'd happily do all day, and the work you keep saying yes to and regretting. And finally, purpose, the work that would really light you up if you stopped filtering it through what you think you're supposed to do. Most people have never written any of this down, so they're aiming at a target that keeps moving and they never feel like they've arrived. The criteria are what turn "I want a good business" into something you can actually make decisions against. Now, the second thing is the one almost nobody does, and it changes the most. You have to know your numbers properly. Let me break down the maths. Now, say you work around school hours. 4 hours more or less of focused work a day, 5 days a week, term time only. That's 39 weeks a year. 780 working hours in a year, and that is the whole budget. That is all there is. Now, not all of those hours are billable. You've got admin, marketing, your own thinking time. So let's say generously, half of them are hours that someone actually pays you for. 390 billable hours in a year. That's the number a lot of people don't calculate. So what you need to do is work backwards from what you want to earn. Say your target take home is one figure or another. We can take a few different examples. If you want to take home 60k, you add tax and costs to get your revenue target, divide by those 390 hours, and you've got the rate you need. Do the same if it's 120k or 250k. The point isn't the exact figure. It's that suddenly you can see the actual number you need to be charging, not the number that feels comfortable, the number that the maths demands. Now, for a lot of people, this is the moment it clicks why they're flat out and still not earning enough, because they're pricing for a 2,000-hour year, 52 weeks a year, and living a 400-hour one. And to be clear here, I'm not saying you should charge by the hour. This is the behind-the-scenes work you do to make sure your offers actually deliver what you want them to. Now, I'm also not telling you to suddenly hike all your prices. The point of this is to be honest with yourself about what it actually takes, what it would take, so you can design offers with enough value that the right clients are happy to pay for them. Sometimes the maths shows you're charging too little. Sometimes it shows you're charging too much for the hours something eats up. And either way, you can finally see that clearly. Now, I teach this as 3 rates. First, your integrity rate is the one to aim for, sort of averaged across your work. It's the rate that, if it's roughly what you earn across the year, gives you the income and the life that you designed back at the start. And that's your baseline target, your integrity rate. Now, your resentment rate is the floor, and it sits below your integrity rate. It might be around 70% of it, but you can set that yourself. Below that resentment rate, once you count the energy, the time, and the opportunity cost, what you're missing or saying no to in order to take this on, the work just isn't worth it. You'll over-deliver because you're a perfectionist. You'll under-earn and you'll resent it. Anything under that resentment rate is a no. And if you want, you can add a third one, which is your stretch rate, and it's higher than your integrity rate. It might be 1.5 times higher. That's the rate for the right caliber of client who really values the work and has the budget, where you're delivering something exceptional. Its purpose is to keep pushing your own ceiling up over time. Now, your integrity rate is where you want to aim on average. You might go below it for the right project, one that gives you a brilliant case study, a big name client, or perhaps some repeat work, as long as you've chosen that consciously, intentionally. And your stretch rate is where you reach when the client and the work justify it. The third and final design piece is making sure the offer itself fits the hours, because you can have the right price and still build something that runs you ragged. If your offer needs 60 hours of delivery a week to make the numbers work, it doesn't matter how well it's priced, you've designed yourself a job, and potentially a worse one than the one you left. So the model has to be in integrity with the time you've actually got. That might mean group instead of one-to-one, fewer clients at a higher rate, productizing the thing you currently rebuild from scratch every time. Get the vision into real criteria. Get your numbers straight and build an offer or offers that fit around your life. Do that and all the marketing and the sales work you're doing, everything in the next part actually starts to pay off because you're pointing it at the right thing. Okay, so second pillar, demand, is how you get clients. And let's be honest, this is where most of the burnout and most of the cringe actually lives, because the version we've all been sold is pretty exhausting. Post every day, build the automated funnel, chase the followers, send the cold pictures, be everywhere all the time, performing. But there's a calmer way that works better, and it comes down to 3 things: your positioning, your relationships, and your conversations. Now, the first, positioning, is about being clear enough that the right people recognize themselves in what you say. And this is harder than it sounds. Getting the message right takes real work. Properly figuring out the problem you solve, who you solve it for, how you do it differently, and why it matters. I use what I call a signal sentence, one line that captures who you help, the problem you solve, and how you do it. Now, you don't recite this word for word. You keep it in your pocket, and then you speak versions of it to suit the moment. How you introduce yourself at an event, how you open a conversation with a potential client, what goes in your LinkedIn bio. They all come back to the same core, and they all signal to the right people and to the people who might refer you exactly who and what you're for. So that's your signal sentence. When your positioning is sharp, someone hears a version of it and thinks, hey, that's me, that's exactly my problem. When it's fuzzy, you just get lost in the noise because there are 100 other coaches or consultants who sound roughly like you, and nothing marks you out as the one to call. I've watched people get far more of the right inquiries without posting any more than before, just by getting clear enough that the right people finally understood what and who they were for. Now, the second is how you actually become known. You can run a small but mighty expert business on relationships. You don't need 100,000 followers. I call this the relationship radius. Now, the inner ring is the people who already know and trust you. Current clients, past clients, people you've worked with closely. The middle ring is your wider network, perhaps former colleagues from your previous life, the people you've had a good conversation with and their networks. And then the cold outer ring of strangers, which is where almost everyone pours all their energy. Now, most of your next clients are actually sitting in the inner 2 rings, being neglected, while you shout at the outer one. The work is staying in real contact, following up, showing up where your people already are, online and offline, woven together in what I call a tapestry of touch points rather than one linear funnel. And the third is the conversation itself. Sales, the word that makes a lot of us flinch. The reframe that helps, though, is this. Now, a good sales conversation is just finding out whether you can help this person. If you can, you'd be doing them a disservice not to offer. And if you can't, you can just say so. Part of doing this well is knowing why you're saying yes to something. It's fine to take a piece of work pragmatically because you need the cash, as long as you know that's why, and you're okay with what it will cost you in hours and energy. It's fine to do something at a low fee or free if you're clear what you're getting back, the name, the testimonial, the relationship, the case study. What you do want to avoid is saying yes out of habit before you've stopped to decide why and if it's worth it. Sharp positioning, real relationships with the people already around you, and honest conversations. That's demand without the content treadmill and the cringy self-promotion. Now the last part, the last pillar is delivery. Running the thing day to day without it becoming your whole life again. Because you can design it beautifully and fill it nicely and still end up right back where you started. First, boundaries. And I don't mean the vague self-care version, I mean specific, decided in advance rules. The day of the week you don't take calls. The school holidays blocked out before anyone asks. The hard stop at 3 o'clock that you don't apologise for. And I'll be honest here from my own experience, every time I've broken one of these, agreed to a call or a session during the holidays when I've got the kids, said yes to the thing I promised myself I wouldn't, I have regretted it. It's caused stress, migraines, the lot. And sometimes the client cancels anyway, which is worse because then you gave up the time for nothing. Now, these aren't just preferences that you hold when it's convenient. They're design constraints. You build the business around them, not the other way around. So that's boundaries. And second is rhythm. I get clients to map 2 versions of their week. Now, the anchor week, the ideal week as it were, is how you'd structure a normal week if you got to choose. When you do deep work, when you see clients, when you market, and when you stop. The minimum viable week is the one that saves you. It's what you do when you're slammed with a delivery or life blows up. What are the maybe 2 or 3 things that absolutely have to happen to keep the business moving so that when the busy stretch does pass, when life is a bit calmer, you haven't gone completely silent and let everything dry up? The minimum viable week is the floor that stops the feast or famine roller coaster cycle. And third, even if you never want a team, you need just enough support that the whole thing doesn't depend on you being at your desk all the time. A few templates, so you're not writing everything from scratch, a bit of automation for the repetitive stuff, someone to hand the admin to, fine. Enough that you're not the single point of failure in your business. Boundaries you actually keep, a rhythm with a floor under it, and enough support that it doesn't all rest on you. That's how it stays sustainable instead of slowly becoming the job that you were trying to escape. So that's the architecture. Design it on purpose, create demand without the treadmill, deliver it without it running you. Now, if you're watching this thinking, fine, but which bit do I actually start with? What do I work on first? Now, that is the right question to ask because it is different for everyone. For some people, the design is solid and the demand is the gap. For others, they're brilliant at winning work and it's the delivery that's eating them alive right now. I built a short solopreneur diagnostic that helps you see exactly where your biggest gap is across the 3: design, demand, and delivery. It takes a few minutes and it'll tell you where to focus first. The link's in the description and it's free. And there is an important truth underneath all of this. You can know every single bit of it and still not do it. Not because you're not capable, because at this point in your career and your business you clearly are, but doing this work alone in your own head is hard. You second guess the pricing, you let the boundaries slide, you keep saying yes out of habit. It's much easier to see someone else's business clearly than it is your own. If this resonates, I'd love for you to consider Offscript. This is my community of experienced solopreneurs doing exactly this work together, backing each other's pricing decisions, calling out the boundaries that you're letting slip, helping you think through the things that you just can't decide on your own. If you'd like more support than a diagnostic, that's where to find it. The link's also in the description and doors are now open for the July intake. And if this was useful, do subscribe to my channel. I'll be sharing more like this to help you build a profitable business that doesn't run you into the ground.